The title of Missing Halloween definitely piqued my interest, and having now watched it, I can say that it is really fascinating. My one word of advice is don't read the comments on YouTube. It's uploaded onto YouTube, and the comment section tried to dissect it more than I think is necessary. And some people were trying to come up with these are really elaborate timelines when really, for me, it seems quite straightforward. So the comment section kind of ruined it. My advice would be to ignore the comments if you watch this, and I do suggest you watch it. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but I will, towards the end, discuss in spoiler detail. So I will give a warning for that. This was released in 2015, directed by Inel, written by Inel, and it's a story about two children who go off trick or treating for Halloween and various things that they encounter along the way. And the boy is certainly an interesting character, but the girl, although in the shadows of the boy, and definitely is not as extroverted as the boy, she's clearly not as willing to do the whole trick or treating thing, knocking on strangers' doors and asking for candy. She's the one that's the more interesting character. And to be perfectly honest, I can't say any more than that without spoiling anything, because it seems pretty straightforward. It's a story about a boy and his friend who are going trick or treating. And for about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 minutes of the 10 minutes, that's the case. And then something happens and it shifts. And it becomes quite interesting. And to be honest, the direction it took is not what I would have hoped for after the fact. And I will discuss that in a moment. The animation quality is really nice, it's very consistent, it flows really well. The music is really interesting because the music is not what you would expect for something that's got Halloween in the title. It's quite fluffy and light and tinkly and childlike, I guess. And it works really well with the animation and the characters themselves, and it's certainly very interesting. And then there's a point when they stop using music, and it's done very effectively. So I think the sound and the animation are both certainly of high quality. With regards to the narrative, I'm going to discuss it in spoiler detail now, so I recommend that you watch it first, and then come back and let me know your thoughts. I do recommend you watch it, but as I said, maybe avoid the comment section on YouTube because people seem to pick it apart in ways. Perhaps it's just I don't agree with what they're suggesting with what these proposed timelines could be, and it kind of messed it up a little bit and made it unclear. But it's not fair for me to say that the film itself is unclear, because when I watched it, before I read the comments, I had a pretty clear idea of what had happened. Then I read the comments from other viewers whose interpretations are vastly different to mine, and it kind of messed things up. So read them at your own risk, I guess. So, spoiler from now. When it was revealed that the boy had been diagnosed, if you like, as having an imaginary friend, I thought, great, this is a story about a boy who has no friends except his imaginary friend. He has to go trick-or-treating with an imaginary friend, and maybe the psychological aspects of that and the complications that that could cause. Or maybe, maybe it wasn't an imaginary friend, it was some kind of psychosis. I don't know, but that's the direction I thought it was taking. And I would have loved that. That would have been so fascinating, and I kind of wish it did. But the direction it took was interesting still, because, and spoilers, as I said, the little girl leads this little boy into this dangerous zone where there are bear traps everywhere, and then the music stops, and we presumably jump forward in time, because the boy's still there. And we see these adults searching in this dangerous area, and they come across the corpse of this little girl. And for me, there's the suggestion that this little girl led the boy there so that the boy could go and get help and get people to find her corpse. But then there's a hint that the boy's still there. So I'm not entirely sure what they were looking at or why the boy wouldn't have done anything about it. It's not quite clear. That aspect of it I didn't think was quite clear. And that part of the timeline, even before I read the YouTube comments, I thought, okay, this bit could have been made a little bit clearer somehow. Unfortunately, I don't have any helpful suggestions for how that could have been. But how much time has elapsed is not particularly clear. Do I need to know that to enjoy it? It would have been nice, but it's not essential, because the story is pretty much straightforward. This boy who is on his own, maybe he has no friends, ends up getting an imaginary friend who is actually the spirit of a deceased girl, and this deceased girl leads him to her body, presumably with the intention of him finding adults so that they could locate the corpse, or maybe she was just lonely because her corpse was lonely and she needed a friend. And a lot of people believe that until a corpse is laid to rest, if it's out there in the wilderness on its own, then the spirit will also be lonely, and there are kind of spiritual aspects that you could read into it as well. Another thing that's weird is that if people in the comments were saying like a year had passed since her death, the corpse would not be there anymore, rotting like it was. So definitely avoid the comments and come to your own conclusions. But I do think the way the corpse was animated was very effective. It was very well done. We never got a full shot of the corpse. We only got to see bits of her body up close from different angles, different perspectives, and I think it worked well. It worked really well. Of course, the big question is, why was this little girl out there on her own anyway? What happened? What happened to make her be so alone in a dangerous location? Who knows? But it worked well enough. I enjoyed it, and then I read the comments on YouTube, and then it began to frustrate me that the timeline wasn't clear. Because I did think, oh, it's not that clear, but I'm not going to let it bother me. And then I read the comments and realised that actually it's bothering a lot of people, and it is very unclear. So it needed to be fine-tuned a little bit to make the transition from, let's say, the scenes with the music to the scenes without the music a little bit clearer and a little bit easier to follow. But generally, the narrative is, on the one hand, straightforward. A boy has a spirit as a friend. This boy is led to the body of this spirit. On the other hand, why would this girl lead this boy into a dangerous location? That seems like a really selfish, spiteful thing to do. But she is a child. I need to remember she's just a child. I enjoyed it. The quality of the animation is nice. It's very cleverly done. The music is great. The animation is very well edited. The narrative is very thought-provoking. And clearly by the YouTube comments, it definitely sparks conversation. Whether or not you agree with everything that's being said, time will tell if you do have a look. But I enjoyed it. It's not perfect, but Missing Halloween is still worth watching.